Subjects of sport and politics. Rob Harris is here, having followed the FIFA corruption story from the very start. Very good morning to you, Rob. We were saying 2 weeks ago when the questions were being fired at Blatter, the day after the scandal was really hit top gear, and your question from the floor, very direct one: are you incompetent or deliberately negligent, Sepp? Did you get a satisfactory answer or not?
No, he very much evaded that question, but as we know, within 3 days he'd walked out the door, announced he'd be walking out the door and leaving FIFA, so the pressure certainly hit him, maybe less so from the media, more so from the FBI, we suspect.
So it's a big story for the agencies in particular. You work for AP. Interpol, what the latest twist there? What's the fallout from that?
Well, they've been funding FIFA's fight against match fixing for a number of years, and certainly working in partnership with FIFA to combat match fixing. And yesterday they announced they want nothing to do with FIFA at the moment, and obviously they don't want to be handling FIFA's cash, clearly, at a time when the whole organisation is being damned by the courts in the US and accused of corrupt practices.
What's going to happen now? The next, obviously, Blatter. We're wondering, when is he going to go? I mean, the process of reform is underway. He's already got rid of his media map, brought to Gregorio, which we'll talk about in a second. But do you expect him to stay now? He seems to be, have this sort of plan, exit strategy, where he can, perhaps, if he can, get some credit for reform, come up smelling of roses, which is, not unlike him to do that kind of thing.
He's portraying himself as the great reformer. In FIFA's in-house magazine this week, he's even writing about how well he handled the crisis, how well he is running the FIFA ship during the worst crisis in their 111-year history. But he's posting pictures on Twitter, on his account, showing him in the reform process. He's announced a meeting next month when they'll decide the date for the presidential election, and that meeting will also...
That's what, July, the date when they'll decide when the vote's going to be. It's going to be quite some time down the line, isn't it?
Yeah, they'll meet on July 20th in Zurich, and the vote itself will be between December and February, so he could be in that office for some time to come.
Yeah, in the meantime, of course, the inquiries, the investigation going on in the States. Chuck Blazer has been very much it's going to be a major player here, isn't he? And obviously Jack Warner. What's going to happen with him now next few days, Chuck Blazer?
Well, Chuck Blazer is formerly one of the most powerful men in world football, an American member of the executive committee until he was banned a few years ago. He's crucially behind a lot of this evidence that the US has against FIFA officials. He did a plea deal with them a couple of years ago, which meant he would hand over evidence and detail to them on what he knew of what was going on within FIFA. What the US media organisations have asked for is for a copy of that deal he did with the US authorities to be released, and as it stands, it's going to be released next week unless the US authorities find a compelling reason why it should remain secret.
And Jack Warner?
Jack Warner's still defiant in Trinidad, railing against the US, railing against those attacking him. He's the former FIFA vice president, accused of all sorts of wrongdoing on TV rights and various other commercial deals.
The $10 million loan and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
How do you see it panning out? I mean, let's try and go forward 6 months. Are we untangling this mess or not?
It very much depends who's probably elected as Blatter's successor. Is it someone in Blatter's mould, or is it a real reformer, someone who clears out the place, changes the whole processes, and really gives fans confidence back in the way the organisation is run? Because at the moment there are very few who do.
Yeah, Platini's name obviously to the fore. He's sort of played a clever game, hasn't he? He's remained fairly friendly with Sepp Blatter, asked him to resign, but sort of smiling and greeting him the next day. Good choice or not? If he were to be the man put forward?
Well, he would face certainly questions perhaps over his voting for Qatar for 2022 World Cup, but he would clearly be a step forward from Blatter. Whether he's the key reformer people want, many questions would still remain. He's not exactly university lights, it seems.
Yeah, he's got a similar sort of bigger plan, hasn't he, to Blatter. He wants to take the game to far-flung corners. We've seen 2020, the Euros are going to be in numerous places, the likes of Azerbaijan, which we'll talk about later in the programme. So, there are similarities there, aren't there?
Yeah, and he worked alongside Blatter for so many years. Platini is the man who helped get Blatter elected in 1998, so that's the thing, he's very closely tied with the old regime. Does FIFA need a completely clean break, someone completely new in there?
Yeah.
That's
the
the
outside of the European power base, which might be attractive to some of the smaller nations in FIFA too.
Well, indeed, that's it's whether a compelling candidate comes forward. A bit of a quandary for you and other rights groups. The fact you do campaign against these sporting events going to countries with human rights issues, but if it wasn't for those sporting events being in these countries, we wouldn't be talking about Azerbaijan. We wouldn't be talking about some of the other countries like Bahrain that have had issues when they've had F1.
Yeah, same goes for Qatar as well, and migrant workers' rights for the World Cup in 2022. Having these big sports events in countries with human rights records that Amnesty is concerned about definitely offers us an opportunity to shine a light on what is going on in those countries. The problem is when human rights abuses happen because an event is taking place.
Well, as a sporting event, I mean, it's kind of like a European Olympics, and it's very much a fledgling thing. Is it worth much or not?
Well, there's no top-level athletics, there's no top-level swimming.
A few Olympians have gone though, haven't they?
Yeah, Nicola Adams, who was the Team GB flag bearer, the boxing champion. But the fact is, they're giving it away free online, some of the, all the action, a lot of it. So that does show, it's not valuable like the Olympics and, say, the World Cup.